Hello, guys. It is Wednesday, May 27th. Yes, May 27th, 2015, Comic Book Day. Possibly more importantly, my last day here in these college dormitories. Tomorrow I move out for the final time because I have graduated college. Applause for myself. And fitting, for the ending of one chapter of my life, this is the final week of DC's Convergence crossover event. I got lots of opinions of this, so let's jump in to probably the weakest of the Convergence books this week. Detective Comics, Convergence Detective Comics, issue number 2. This one, thankfully, narrated by a recap section in the first 2 pages, covers Dick Grayson and Helena Wayne from Earth 2, not New 52, Earth 2, Earth 2 from, I think it's pre-Crisis Earth 2, as they cross over with Superman from the Red Sun universe. And as so hopefully explained by the first issue, by the first 2 pages. In the first issue, they run into each other. Dick tries to negotiate with Superman. Helena decides to throw missiles at him. And that is where we begin this issue of the story, with Helena deciding to blow up the Batmobile on top of Superman. Of course, this is fruitless, and Red Sun Superman ends up saving Helena Wayne from the blast, bringing her to Dick Grayson. And then suddenly, out of flippin' nowhere, Red Sun Batman shows up and pulls Dick and Helena away from the fight. And this is where the story gets kind of dumb. After this happens, Dick suddenly decides that he's not going to try to negotiate with Red Sun Superman anymore. And so, even though they were on the verge of diplomacy in the last issue, in this issue, they decide to fight because it's not really adequately explained why they suddenly decide to abandon diplomacy. It's kind of dumb and kind of fruitless too, because in the end, they decide to go back to diplomacy and decide that it's a draw, and then Red Sun Superman's world is arbitrarily destroyed. So yeah, that's this book. That's really all I can say, is that there was not going to be a fight, and then there was a fight because characters decided fighting was better than not fighting. I don't know. It's like they just needed a fight, and they couldn't find a good reason for the characters to fight. But yeah, it's just dumb, and nothing really comes of it. Because diplomacy wins out in the end. You just wasted an issue kind of backtracking for no reason whatsoever. Anyway, yeah, not a good ending to this issue. Thankfully, it gets better, starting with Action Comics, which also deals with the Red Sun universe, and also pre-Flashpoint, I want to say, Supergirl, or Power Girl, rather. Not exactly sure, but we have Power, as we see on the cover here, Power Girl versus Red Sun Wonder Woman. And we get a quick fight between them. It's actually a pretty good fight. Let me show you a few pages of that. Yeah, this one will do, where Power Girl kind of wrecks Wonder Woman's invisible jet before they had a brawl in Moscow. Meanwhile, Lex Luthor decides he's going to try and take over Moscow for himself in all the commotion. And then Superman joins in, and this becomes a Superman versus Lex Luthor story. Very quickly become, well, he punches Wonder Woman a bit, and then they decide, let's work together instead. And this quickly becomes a Superman versus Lex Luthor story. The quick ending, because Superman versus Lex Luthor is only going to end one way, even across multiverses. And then the book ends with everyone kind of deciding to fight Telos together, even though we learn in this book that the Red Sun City is destroyed. Anywho, much better single issue on its own, ignoring the Detective Comics kind of logistics. Get a pretty good fight scene. The characters behave more rationally. Lex Luthor behaves as Lex Luthor is supposed to behave. Superman is as Superman is. So just a much better book overall. And art's very colorful and likable and all that stuff too. Plus we get Joseph Stalin kind of being undermined at every possible opportunity, which is very fun. Yeah. Next up with Convergence, we have Booster Gold, issue number 2. I liked the first issue in part because Booster Gold is one of the few characters who kind of knew what was going on with this whole big crossover event. Of course, because of his various time travel activities, he is privy to a bunch of information that nobody else knows. He's able to travel freely, or mostly randomly, but somewhat freely between all the different cities. And he has a kind of heightened perspective of everything that's going on, which gives his crossover book something unique. We open where we left off with future Booster Gold waking up in Metropolis, in a Metropolis, next to a Ted Kord, one he recognizes, and they quickly kind of catch up with each other, even though this Booster Gold has been alive 15 more years than this Ted Kord, so he knows that Ted dies in one of the events. I forget which one at this point. I want to say 0 Hour. Could have been Final Crisis. I forget. Anyway, he knows that Ted Kord eventually dies, so he's taking the time to have with his friend, it's sentimental and shit. But he slowly begins to die of what I'm going to call time cancer, because it's caused by time radiation affecting him. So we have future Booster Gold slowly dying with Ted Kord. Meanwhile, New 52 Booster Gold, Rip Hunter, and Booster's sister, I forget her name, Star Booster, or it says in the back of the book, Booster Star. Actually, I don't think it says in the beginning. I think it says at the end of another book. Anywho, they get into a quick scuffle with the Legion, 31st Century heroes, Superboy included, before teleporting away. It's also explained how they had the powers in the last issue, which I thought was maybe just a mistake, but it turns out that because of Booster Gold's time traveling, he kind of brings a chronal... I mean, it's explained using science, comic book science, so not really an explanation, but as far as one goes for why they have powers, it is Booster Gold's latent chronal energy that neutralizes the Dome's ability to squelch their powers. So they end up just warping away anyway and joining old Booster Gold as he is dying next to Ted Kord. And then we kind of get the a resolution that ties in more with the main Convergence story than any other of these tie-in books. So pretty much that I've read. Booster Gold has the strongest tie-in to Convergence, and in fact, once we get to the main Convergence title, the final one, we'll see exactly how this all ends for the Booster Golds. Basically, all the Booster Golds and Ted Kord and Rip Hunter and everybody else all travel to Vanishing Point, which is Booster Gold and Rip Hunter's kind of secret base at the end of the world, where young Booster Gold puts old dying Booster Gold into a time vortex where old Booster Gold becomes Wave Rider, who has the power to ride time waves and can see the future and travel through time, and so he takes the opportunity to teleport everybody to the right time before going in to save the entire day, as we'll see in the main Convergence book. Again, I really like this. I really like this book. Not only does it make sense within the 2 issues of the story it's trying to tell, but it ties in heavily with the main Convergence event. This kind of feels like the only book you should read along with the main Convergence story, but you can also read it on its own. The characters are fine. There's a really good moment in here as old Booster Gold is dying, where him and Ted Kord reminisce, and they remember one of my favorite Justice League stories where they bought all of the Chocos. They call them Oreos in this story, and they switch in Justice League between Oreos and Chocos, but they're basically Oreo cookies, and Martian Manhunter's addicted to them. So in one of the issues, they buy all the Oreos in town, causing Martian Manhunter to Hulk out. Literally, like, Hulk out. He turns into a big red monster. So just very good written dialogue, and the story's well told. There's enough pathos. Even though you know Booster Gold isn't going to die, you do feel a little emotional as you see him slowly age because of the time cancer. And it is good to have Blue and Gold. It's one of the best one of the best instances of Blue and Gold in recent DC history. So if you've been clamoring for that, this is probably the best hit you're going to get for a while. Next up is Convergence Shazam, issue number 2. Probably my single favorite issue of the Convergence books this week. I haven't read any non-Convergence books this week, but this is going to be a tough one to top because it is, in my opinion, the most comic-y comic book I have read in a long, long time. I mean, I was going to flip to one page over here. Because it is just amazing. Basically, to catch you up on what happens before we go to this single page that is the most comic-y comic book page I have read in months, if not years. Captain Marvel flies off to Gaslight Universe Gotham by Gaslight, where he quickly runs into Gaslight Batman. They get into a quick scuffle before deciding to team up against a giant Mr. Atom, who has brainwashed the Gaslight Villains Gallery, or Rogues Gallery, into fighting the city, while giant Mr. Atom becomes a giant robot and basically tries to destroy the city. I'm getting like really strong Gigantor vibes just from his design here. It's really cool. But anyway, the most comic-y comic page in recent memory comes when the rest of the Captain Marvel family join into the fight, and it is the next page right here. Just, I love this spread. We have giant Amazo robot, explosions everywhere. We have Mr. Tawny, I think his name, right? Yeah, we have Mr. Tawny in the plane, flying around, giant tiger face, giant robot in the background. And then we have Captain Marvel bust his way into the robot, only to find that the true mastermind behind this whole thing is Mr. Mind, who is a little alien caterpillar with telepathy. It's just amazing. It's just, you don't see this in comic books anymore. You don't just see this insanity just for the sake of fun. And that's why they're doing it, because this is fun to read. It's giant robots, it's superpowers, it's little alien it's everything comic books are like supposed to be in this one spread. And it's so good. It's so good. Like, this book is worth the price of entry alone, just for these 2 pages. I kind of want these 2 pages framed on a wall. This is like my favorite spread in comics in a long... Yeah, I cannot emphasize how much I love this. I love this so, so much. And it all comes together so well. The art style is incredibly pulpy. Just the action, everything works so well in these 2 pages. And this book it's just amazing. It is just amazing. I love it. I love this. I love these 2 issues. Pick up issue 1 if you can. Pick up issue 2, definitely. Very thoroughly enjoyable read on all accounts. Just everything about it works. It's just amazing. I love it. And like the other books, like the other weeks, we have previews in the back of each story. I didn't really want to talk so much about the others. They were okay. But again, you can read them for yourself online. I just want to show off this one for Constantine, because compared to the brilliant art in this book, Constantine has some really weird art. I'm not going to comment on the story. I just want to show you a few faces in this book that really took me back. It's just like I just saw these and I I had to hold back a laugh, because they're just fun. These are just really dumb looking faces. It reminded me, like, the second thing I thought of was like the human characters in Invader Zim, how sometimes they just go like dead-eyed or whatever. And that's what this reminded me of. Especially like this one, it reminds me of like Dib when he's dumbfounded or something. Anyway, Shazam issue 2, most comic-y comic I've read in a long time. Definitely pick it up. And now for the coup de grace, I guess, the big thing we were all waiting for, Convergence issue 8, the final issue, the finale of Convergence. And I'm not going to spoil too much of what... Okay, I'm going to spoil everything of what happens here. I'm just not going to go into the details of how it happens. But basically, a whole bunch of stuff happens that results in the multiverse coming back. Doesn't really matter how it comes back. Well, I mean, if you're going to pick up the book, it matters. But basically, things happen and the entire multiverse comes back. And what really struck me is that they have a whole spread here that seems to be dedicated to multiversity. We have a lot of the multiversity universes in this page, from even from Ultra Comics over here, which was the penultimate, very meta issue where it knew you were reading. But we also have the Looney Tunes one and the futuristic Batman one. I forget exactly where that was from. Uncle Sam. So yeah, apparently this is the Convergence event ties into multiversity. It reestablishes the multiverse for that to happen. It also ties in with Crisis on Infinite Earths and all that. We get a new Earth 2 out of the whole thing. So it basically resets everything to pre-Crisis DC, which is exciting because it leaves a lot of doors open for the story to go to. And this is, admittedly, as a single issue, pretty fun read, pretty enjoyable, really good at kind of building the tension and the suspense, and wondering, okay, so this is what's happening, you know, now all these heroes have to do all these things, and the result is pretty fantastic, opening up the DC multiverse again. Unfortunately, it took way too long to get there. I said this in the previous, I think, 3 issues of this review. This did not have to be 8 issues long. This could have been a 4 or 5 issue miniseries, or limited series rather. It did not have to be 8 issues. There was a lot of wasted time, a lot of the story. It followed a lot of Earth 2, and we just didn't need to follow the Earth 2 characters so much. Their story is not the main story that all the other ones dovetail into to create Convergence. I don't know why they decided to place those characters in the center and not have them do anything that really ties into the ending so much. It didn't have to be them. It didn't have to be just them. So it feels like we took the long way round to get to this ending, and not for anything's benefit. We don't learn much more about the characters. We don't see them evolve that much more. I mean, we see Dick turn into more and more of a Batman role, which he will then take on in Earth 2 Society, which is the Earth 2 book that follows Convergence. But for the most part, it feels like a lot of empty room. And also, I'm glad that it's ended the way it did. I'm glad that we're through Convergence, that the multiverse is back, that DC now has all this possibility for storytelling, that they kind of got rid of in the New 52, even though it seems they're going to be sticking with the New 52 for the most of it. It leaves the door open. There's a lot of potential here now. But it seems like this whole Convergence event was very kind of masturbatory. It took too long. It was for its own benefit rather than for the benefit of the audience, because it wasn't, well done throughout. Yeah, it just feels like, over the past 4 years with New 52, DC said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to stick with this. We're going to go, guns blazing and tell the best stories we can. And then they realized over the 4 years that that's not what anybody wanted, that they wasted a lot of time doing this, that when they stuck with their guns when they should have not. And then we finally have this. We finally have this ending that everyone has been, waiting for. It's like, yes, finally. And they're not immediately doing something with it. They're just leaving the doors open just to say, okay, we spent 4 years doing this, and now we're done, and now we can go anywhere. And I'm just talking about college. Okay. So that's Convergence. It's basically DC going through college and spending 4 years going, saying this is what we're going to do, and we're going to get really good at it. And then at the end of the 4 years, they have something to show. They have some good stories, but there's a lot more opportunity than there have been results. And while it's not entirely a bad thing, it feels like the past 2 months of Convergence has kind of just been them celebrating that they're reaching the end of the path they put themselves on in the New 52. Holy shit, it was just DC going to college. Okay, I'm going to have to think about this for a bit. I still have the non-Convergence books to review this week. We have one Marvel book. We have Sandman issue 5. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, if you want more like this every week, please subscribe. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And yeah, any comments, questions, anything whatsoever, feel free to talk about them. And thank you for watching, and I hope you'll join me for the next comic book review stuff I do. I'm going to go think for a bit.